new film by Asghar Farhadi, which, if you were watching the Oscars, you'll know won the Oscar for foreign language film. His second Oscar win, he won for Separation. Of course, he wasn't there, and the reason he wasn't there was he boycotted the ceremony in protest at Trump's travel ban, and so the award was received by people that were representing him there. And there has been some suggestion, I think unfairly, that the reason that the film won was a gesture of political support, and I don't think that's true at all. I think that although The Salesman may not be up there with A Separation, which is a really fantastic film, it is still a very, very powerful piece of neo-realist work. The story is a husband and wife. They are part-time actors. He's a teacher in some of the things that we see, and they're putting on a version of Death of a Salesman, a production of Death of a Salesman, the Arthur Miller. At the beginning, we see them in an apartment block in Tehran, which is crumbling, which is literally falling apart. And because this actually then set off reminders of Under the Shadow, and which, as you remember, it was put forward for the Oscars. That's the British film that is set in. Anyway, never mind. Diversion. The apartment they're in is falling apart.
Do I need to ask you any questions?
No,
about
you're fine. The apartment is falling apart, and they get moved into another building where they've got an apartment which is owned by somebody they're working with in the theatre company. And at first, this seems okay. It's like a temporary place to stay. And then one day, whilst he is out, he's rehearsing, he's going to have to do something, she is at home in the flat. She's sorting out her makeup from the production, taking the makeup off. There's a buzz at the door, and she thinks it's him. She just buzzes the intercom open. And there is a shot in which she opens the front door, unlocks it, then goes back to the thing. And then the door just very, very slowly starts to creep open. And it's a brilliant moment because it's a moment in which the film becomes really sinister and really threatening. The next time we see her, she has been attacked in the apartment. And then what happens is the rest of the film is about the fallout of the attack, the way in which she responds to it, the way in which her husband responds to it, the way in which everybody around them responds to it. And the film then becomes a discussion, on the one hand, of their relationship falling apart as he becomes obsessed with the idea of revenge. It becomes a film in which it is a political story about relationships between genders and the politics of those relationships. It becomes a film about trauma and dealing with trauma and sexual assault. It becomes a film which takes the themes of Death of a Salesman and the reality of what's happening to these people spills over into their stage production. So she finds herself dumbfounded by the audience's gaze. He starts raging and ad-libbing on stage as his pent-up aggression comes out. She says to him, you are obsessed with revenge. And I thought that what the film did really well was, it's got this kind of intimate handheld cinematography, absence of incidental music, shot in a very kind of neo-realist style that we would think here of as being kind of like Ken Loach, but it also has almost a sense of a ghost story of the spirits of the past haunting the present, of areas becoming bad places. I mean, brilliant performances. I thought very nuanced. Some people have complained that the drawing together of the plot and the story of Death of a Salesman is done too heavy-handedly, and I disagree. I actually went into this with an anxiety that it was going to be too somehow that match wasn't going to work, and I didn't find that was the case at all. I felt myself profoundly moved by her situation and her response to her situation. I thought his inability to deal with her reaction and his desire for revenge, which then moves into something in the third act which would remind some viewers of, for example, Prisoners, the Denis Villeneuve film, was actually a much more fruitful discussion of those themes than perhaps it would have seemed. But I liked it. I liked it very much. I thought it was powerful and strong and political and personal and well-judged and gripping. And I found it haunting and moving and distressing. And interestingly enough, for anyone who had a problem with Elle, which is a completely different film, it's interesting that this film is in cinemas at the same time, because this is much more about the reality of that kind of assault than L is, which is a very arch and very deliberately provocative drama. I thought this was very fun.